Everybody, it's Tom Cuniff, Solutions Architect. This session we're going to talk about vManage, and we're going to do a demo. So we're going to walk through all the features and functions of fault management, performance management, configurations, all the different dashboards to give you an idea of where to look for things. So with me today, I have David Klebedoff, Technical Marketing Engineer. Hello, David.
Hi, Tom.
How's it going?
Good glad to be here.
Are you ready for the walkthrough?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. And presenting is Ali Sheck. Ali, we're going to walk through the demo for us. Ali, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, Tom. Today, we'll be looking at the vManage overview and walking through some of the different layouts for the vManage dashboard. When we first log in to vManage, we'll see that it brings us to a page where it's giving us the overall health of this environment. So giving us visuals in terms of all the different things that we have and giving us an aggregate view of the health. This is where we see things like inventory, overall health, transport distribution, various other things. So this is commonly the page that you'll log into and just get an idea of, are things going well?
So I guess a green arrow up means healthy.
Absolutely. Green is always good.
Right.
The next thing we want to look at is the administration page. The administration section is that section where you go to for first time bring up, when you're first operationalizing this environment. So you want to identify those key settings, the users that operate this network, and if you're going into some more details with regard to how you deploy vManage. So when we look at just settings, this is where we want to highlight the fact that this is where you're just overall setting up the framework for your overall overlay. So ideally, this is where we would identify as the framework for the overlay. All right, so this is where you're identifying those key parameters. This is what's going to dictate for everybody else inside this overlay, those parameters, those key values. So usually when we go into first-time deployments, Tom, you know from advanced services as well, this is a section that you commonly end up having to interact with.
Right. Initial setup. But typically after the initial setup, you wouldn't visit this page anymore. Right?
That's exactly right. This is that initial framework. Once it's set up, it's done. From here, we think about what we want to do next. We've identified that initial setup for our environment. Now we want to lay out the configuration framework for our environment. So we go to our configuration section. Within configuration, there are a number of menu items, each related to a specific aspect of the overlay. So you have the devices where you manage your devices, so your inventory management. So it's listing out all the different devices that you have. From there, you look at things like certificates. That is, everything in the system depends on certificates, and being able to control that from one single place is key here. So again, identifying essentially certificates.
So is this where you go, let's say you wanted to revoke a certificate, somebody stole the vEdge from a store, and you needed to take them offline. Is this where you would go to do that?
Precisely. This is the page where you manage anything related to identity, because the identity in the solution is dependent on certificates.
We're also seeing here a mention of controllers. So I guess it's all visible, not just the routers themselves, but control infrastructure is also
That's exactly right. So all of the infrastructure, whether it's an edge device, a controller, an orchestrator, vManage, vSmart View, all the different things that could be in the solution, everyone's identity is controlled here. And that, again, comes back to certificates. Obviously, the key aspect with an overlay solution is being able to handle the configurations. And the configurations are defined through templates. So again, vManage is the endpoint on which you define all of your configs. And this would be where you build out that entire config layout. And you'll see this workflow is organic in that you want to manage your inventory, you want to manage the identity, and then you want to build out the configuration for your devices. Once you go further down, then you get into some of the more complex aspects of SD-WAN. where you look at things like policies. And being able to define centrally all the behavior for your overlay. One place to govern all the different policy aspects for your network. From there on, we won't go too far, but this is where you start seeing things like all the different cloud capabilities that are native to the solution. And again, everything centrally controlled through vManage. So when we talk about guiding people through the overlay framework, this is our workflow. Think about when you want to configure this environment. You want to manage your inventory, manage the identity of what's allowed, what's not allowed, build the configurations, build the policies, and then start looking at doing some of the more cool SD-WAN stuff. So now you've done the configuration aspect. Now you're in the next day. These sites are deployed, and you want to look at what's happening in this infrastructure. And that brings us to monitor. You want to have visibility in terms of what's happening, what are my sites performing like, are there any issues, and how do I troubleshoot those issues? And all of those aspects are delivered through this framework. So the first thing we go to is the network, giving us a list of our active devices. So this is where I'm seeing all the different sites in my environment. And, again, green is good. If I see any problems, I want to be able to react to that. I want to see various aspects that are immediately meaningful, like software versions, things like uptime and things like that. So this is just giving me the overall layout of what does my environment look like? Are things good? From there, I'll go into more details, looking at individual devices, looking at alarms associated to devices, if there are any. So it looks like in this environment, it's a healthy environment. We don't have any active alarms.
And that's an aggregate of all the sites there that you've gone into?
Exactly. This page is giving me an aggregate alarm view for the network. So this is essentially network alarms. So network-wide, if there are any issues, let me know.
I see also the severity in here, so I guess you can prioritize what you want to act on first and what you want to delay.
That's exactly right. You want to know what is more meaningful. What do I react to? From here on, it also gives you visibility into everything that could be happening. So not everything is a bad thing that happens in the network, but there are events that are generated in the network, and it is good to have an eye on them to know patterns and see what is happening in this environment. So this is my network event page. This is just letting me know what's happening in my system. This could be just good stuff. This could be benign stuff. But this is important stuff to make those decisions in terms of identifying patterns. Here I'm seeing things like my Cloud Express application is operating. Well, I want it to be operating, and it's a good thing, but it's letting me know what's happening, what application's using, and things of that sort.
Are we doing any degree of correlation? Because you mentioned that events, many systems events can be overwhelming to the administrator. Sure. So how do we make sure that the administrator is not overwhelmed with the amount of events coming in?
That's a very good question. And that is where the relationship between these two comes into play, where events are simply, we're looking at everything that happens in the system. But an alarm is what we trigger when we identify that based on what we're seeing, this is something bad and requires a user to take action.
Right. And vManage is not a syslog server, per se,
correct.
Right?
vManage is not a syslog server. What vManage is doing is leveraging the fact that it has a connection to every device and pulling data using netconf. So the events are netconf events, and then the vManage is also able to periodically collect statistics from the environment. So all that we see is a combination of push and pull, but vManage is able to provide that in an easy-to-consume fashion.
What do I do with my existing IT tools? If I have an existing tool that is leveraging SNMP or syslog, is it obsolete? Do I?
Not at all. So with other NMS systems, they have additional functionality that vManage isn't really designed to provide. You can still leverage SNMP, syslog, all the other different toolkits that exist out there, and continue to use your NMS systems with the vEdges that you have. In addition, one of the things to highlight is everything that you see on vManage, every click, every visual, that's an API. And you can actually use other NMS systems to integrate with those APIs to collect data from vManage as well. So the intelligence that's in vManage doesn't mean it's lost or it's locked down to vManage. You can interact with that intelligence and propagate that to your NMS systems.
And your vEdge routers can also use traditional means to send SNMP traps to SNMP.
Absolutely.
This isn't a single. It's not a single NMS. It can work
exactly.
in parallel.
We like to have the ability that you should be able to use the best of breed of all technologies. So you should not be locked out if you go to SD-WAN. You want to use SNMP, you still can. If you want to use NetFlow, you still can. And now you have a whole new way of using more intelligent data as well. So once we complete this, the next part is, well, now when we want to do some troubleshooting, being able to navigate through different workflows, we can leverage different tool sets that are visible within vManage. So being able to directly access routers, to troubleshoot, to be able to fetch various output. So for example, this page allows me to console into each device, giving me an SSH terminal. In addition, I have other operational commands that I can use to do some other troubleshooting activities, like fetch tech files, reset blocked users, other things like that. The last thing within vManage is a connection into vAnalytics. This is the launch point to give you additional analytics services all through vManage without requiring an additional login or going into some other service. vManage becomes that point of entry into any other service that is offered as part of the SD-WAN solution. And that, in total, is the full functionality of the vManage dashboard, giving you one place to define the overlay, to define the configurations, and then to be able to monitor and manage this infrastructure. Any questions, guys?
No, I think
very informative.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Pretty flexible. I like it.
Yep, simple to use and simple to consume. All right, thanks, guys.
Okay, so thank you, Ali, and I hope everyone enjoyed this demo. Very informative to me. Thank you for attending.